YouTube comments from a video titled, The Foods You Must Avoid to Live Longer Dan Buettner. Part 1.
At Martin Rogers, N7Q wrote,
Humanity does need Westerners to live to 100. Rather, we need 20-year-old women to have children. We are way below replacement levels, and thus no one to pay for the increased number of people on pensions.
At Roland R2C wrote,
Blue Zones has become a commercial program. It was acquired by Adventist Health in 2020. Blue Zones to be recognized must now avoid the consumption of meat. Adventist Health is the Seventh-day Adventist church that advocates a plant-based diet. People must watch the YouTube video from Low Carb Down Under called What's Driving Australia's Chronic Disease Crisis, presented by Australian of the Year Dr. James Mook.
At Breen6714 wrote,
I definitely do not want to live to be 100, but I would like to have a good quality of life for the years left that I do have.
At Darren Milo 9565 wrote,
Really interesting. The point raised that this starts in the grocery store where you decide not to buy it. I think it needs to go further and you stay out of the grocery store. Their ability to get you to buy crap is unbelievable. You are way better off ordering what you need and collecting it or getting it delivered. Of course, in times gone by, we wouldn't have this issue just going to the baker or the butcher or the grocer. You might succumb to an odd sticky bun, but you wouldn't be coming home with a party-sized bag of cheesy corn chips.
At Runner D1C wrote,
If you're tired of the clickbait intro sessions on this channel and want a comprehensive summary of the key points of the video, click on the Ask button beneath the video. Select Summarize the video. AI will generate a nice comprehensive review that can be read in less than a minute. You're welcome.
At DJDC wrote,
I'm sorry, but why are they pushing the Blue Zones theory when it has been shown to be pseudoscience? I'm not saying that the advice is wrong, but it has been shown that the whole concept of the Blue Zones as places where people live exceptionally long lifespans has mainly been driven by poor birth records. I'm disappointed that Zoe would bring this on, but I have increasingly noticed a slide towards more unsubstantiated claims in their videos.
At HSFM9KV wrote,
For the slow kids at the back, the BZs are bollocks. Ask any serious demographer, and the records don't add up. Variously pension fraud in Sardinia, made up records in Costa Rica to incomplete ones in Japan. None of these zones' general life expectancy differ from the rest of their respective countries, with exception of Okinawa, which has one of the lowest and know nothing to do with recent obesity as their records start in 1975. What they all have in common is poverty. On the other hand, BV is now a wellness company. Spot the grift.
At Hull 8376 wrote,
Today, people in Norway buy a lot more protein-added products for some reasons. Building muscles many do it for. I don't think big amounts of protein is so important for building muscles.
At Andrew Bird 57 wrote,
In July, I had to have an emergency angioplasty age 68. My cardiologist noted that my LDL was about 50 milligrams per deciliter and asked me how I achieved that without taking a statin. I told him my diet revolves around tofu, brown rice and vegetables. This comprises, I estimate, 75% of my diet and has for years. I have the genetics for coronary artery disease, and I have it bad. I previously resisted taking a statin, but since the episode in July, I've been taking one.
At Aka Marvin wrote,
Where actually in the video is the bit about the 4 foods you should always in your house? It's teased with a cliffhanger in the intro at around 1:35, but is nowhere to be found. That clickbait kind of approach from Zoe cuts me.
At Jokavanig 1297 wrote,
Wasn't it debunked that the whole Blue Zone thing in a study, particularly the Japanese one where people lied about their ages to get access to handouts, and they were taken at their word they were older than they actually was to qualify. Also, records in all these blue zones aren't well kept from that long ago. Diet matters, but so does environment and genetics.
At Daryl Horner 500 wrote,
IT's been known for decades that YAO, UDO, NOT need TO combine grains A and D beans ATTE same meal TOGT complete protein. Just EAT those foods over THE course OF a DAY. In addition IT's NOTTHE speed with which YOUEATO are time OFDAY. IT what YOUEAT that determines health outcomes.
At Daryl Horner 500 wrote,
What DAN doesn't tell YOUIS, YOUDON have TO give you P animal foods, TOGET fiber. YOUCANEAT some animal foods A and D still EAT fiber. Beware THE animal rights activist.
At Dave Fair 2969 wrote,
I recently saw a map on our world in maps. It showed the countries eating the most processed food. It was the UK with over 50% of calories coming from ultra-processed foods. The countries eating the least were around the Mediterranean. I don't think it's rocket science. Eat a variety of whole foods / plants / animals / fish / beans / grains at sea without chemicals on them / aka organic. No GMO. Enjoy eating.
At Will McGregor 7184 wrote,
The healthiest, cheapest, most colorful, flavorful diet is mostly one ingredient foods that come the ground. Real foods, one ingredient, real cooking requires time, effort, planning at sea nutrition, and exercise. You get what you give. Do not expect good health or a good performance level if you don't consistently put in a good effort. Good plus performance level is priceless.
At user SC2EE8TP7K wrote,
Diet is one thing, but life standard is another. If we only could wake up around 10 a.m., have breakfast with friends till lunchtime, then nice coffee, then 40 wings, then same game at the table with friends before dinner around 8 or 10 p.m. till 3 a.m. On weekends breaking few plates, dancing and having good time. Would be this great. No death lines, no school runs, house given by mommy and daddy, bonuses for washing hands after toilet, bonuses for being on time at work. Government debt paid by UE. WE would live longer TOO.
At Melon 7396 wrote,
Before the advent of industrialized food, media advertising and promotion and convenience foods, most people knew these things. My grandmother said Americans eat too much meat and not enough colorful vegetables, fish, and grains. She was a blue ribbon winner for her cakes and fruit pies at state fairs, made things like watermelon rind pickles, slow-cooked soups and stews, and picked her herbs from the ground. Meat was locally raised, and she knew the ranchers personally. I don't think she counted calories or thought about protein content much, just cooked things properly. I never saw her drink anything except black coffee and water, no soda, liquor, wine, beer, or juice. She lived to be 94.
At Dance Generation 7595 wrote,
I'm not sure I can watch this, as I know what they are going to say. In a nutshell, it'll be eat a whole food plant-based diet and only eat meat occasionally. Given that ZOE has a definite plant-based focus, I am not surprised that they are agreeing with the chosen blue zones. I truly believe that eating mostly plants is not a proper human diet, and just living a long life is not the same as living a healthy, active long life. I'm all for eating a proper whole food animal-based diet. But it's not diet alone that will help you live longer. Other contributing factors, such as stress levels, exercise, sleep, sunshine, nature, and social connection, are fundamental to a long, healthy, active life. Eat all the bloody beans you want. I'd rather support proper regenerative farming, feeding animals a proper diet, not grain or corn, who are not reared in sheds, but free to roam. And if I am going to eat plants, then I want them fresh out the ground, like the blue zones, not the ones available to us in our supermarkets and grocery stores because I have no idea where or how they were grown.
At About Supplies wrote,
Deception by omission. For the Icaria Food Questionnaire, he left out the 3 most eaten foods: goat, lamb, pork. He's made a career out of that intellectual dishonesty. And yes, I do have evidence if you want to see it.
At Deandrew Civic 8912 wrote,
It is very interesting that these blue zones and hubs of omega-3 fatty acids DHA, EPA, intake as many nutrition podcasts would have us believe are essential for brain and heart health. Sardinia Blue Zone is with an enclave of more mountain dwellers, and Costa Rica wouldn't be a source of cold water fish anyway. I will still be eating my salmon and swordfish though, as I like fish, but it is interesting to ponder.
At Costillero 2189 wrote,
We have this obsession with what to do, what to eat. But the most important thing is just thinking less, having more friends to spend the idle hours outside in the sun with, and eat just enough to get by.
At Daniel Morgan 2987 wrote,
Very interesting. I noticed that the question of religion faith wasn't picked up on at all. The guest indicated that faith was a common denominator, an observation rather than necessarily a criticism.
At Tom Winstonley 1915 wrote,
I was told about a keen recumbent cyclist in Scotland. He died at the age of 103. The best bit? The day before he died, he was out on a bike ride. That's what I'm shooting for.
At Anemk 8930 wrote,
Eating slowly takes some self-discipline, but it makes a huge difference in my CGM data. Cuts blood sugar spikes and variability. After a month of eating slowly, I also developed natural GLP-1 and feel less hungry, no more cravings. This podcast discusses eating slow in a social setting. If you can't do that, simply fix up your plate. Divide in 2 to 3 sections. Eat one section. Go do something else. Come back and eat the next portion after 20 to 30 minutes. You will eventually feel less hungry and not hit your pancreas and insulin cells with a base toiler. Stop eating fast. It's really bad.
At Ellen Kletskin 1016 wrote,
When the Zoe guest put down the shots in the belly, I lost interest in the rest of what he had to say. To be very clear, I am not a subscriber of any GLP-1 GIP injections yet. I have struggled with obesity for 62 years, from 8 years old on. So for those people who are celebrities or are able to pay with help from insurance, you can be sure the belly shots for those who tolerate the weekly injection could not be more stunned and pleased with their shrinking massive self, finally. It is kind of a new start, and those who fear illnesses as they age, 40 plus, will self-educate with honest resources that guide people how to live past 60 plus more years than 30-something at best, with knowledge from Zoe, Gundry, Lee, etc., etc., etc. This shot in the belly is a former thing, and now other scientists are providing information learned, how the body can react to ingested combinations of natural plants and potions. Downplaying these injections to promote the Zoe way of eating is just a long and winding road with slow results for those overweight to morbidly overweight. Having these injections or gelatin concoctions gives a new reflection in one's mirror in a month or two. Please be mindful of the physical and emotional struggles the overweight to obese people feel when making comparisons.
At Whack the Good 8884 wrote,
Good advice, if nothing new really. Now I really like Minstone, but from there to being able to eat it every single day, 7 days in a row, I'd get bored with that. I need more variety.
At Hamakua 484 wrote,
Longevity is a hook, but more emphasis should be placed on feeling better in 2 weeks, better yet in a month, etc. Grab a partner and get better together.
At Luca 6635 wrote,
I value the quality videos from Zoe, but it seems to me the team is ignoring regular comments and criticism I see regularly in the comments. Pre-Barry, as well as pre. Tim Spector keep talking about the obsession with proteins. I'd like to point out that you had at least 3 experts in past couple of years saying that the recommended daily amount of protein should be 12 to 16 grams kilograms of body weight. One of them even said up to 2000, which is probably an exaggeration. There is no way that you are going to get to that amount by consuming beans, which happen to only have 3 times the amount of protein that vegetables have. Grains have a significant amount of proteins, as the expert in this video reminds us, yet I'd be curious to know how much of that is assimilated by the body. I heard it depends on how much you chew those seeds. Tofu is a great source, too, of course. But I guess a lot of the centenaries also consume cheese, meat, and fish regularly. Let's be realistic, please. Newly released videos should not be in conflict with the previous one. Beans are great for fiber and nutrients, but won't give you all the proteins that you need if you are planning to fight sarcopenia or put on muscle mass.
At Audrey Urbanavicius 5428 wrote,
All I hear is protein, good protein, bad protein, enough protein, no protein. Carbs, good carbs, bad carbs, off fiber as well. People don't eat carbs or proteins or fats or fiber. They just eat food which grows in their garden. It happens to be that they benefit from that food, and we should copy that over to our life. I can only imagine Blue Zone's people having breakfast, writing down how much protein they got and how much still need to be eaten. It's so funny, but this is what this video is about. It's misleading watchers. Important topics are what food they eat, what ratios of fruit and veggies and berries, how they prepare food, what percentage is raw, what is cooked, do they use oils or water for cooking, how often they eat, and etc. Now, the interview is about macronutrients, and it sounds like experts can explain what's good in their diet, maybe tell Blue Zone's people what they need to change to make it better, as we constantly read or hear in countless videos and interviews on YouTube, TV, and other media. I don't care why it works, I just want to know what works and how I can copy that to my diet.
At Sunshine 87654 wrote,
I thought Zue was created on the idea that we are all genetically different. Therefore, the optimal diet for each individual will be different. I have been tweaking my diet for years based on what I know about my genetics and my personal metabolism. After going through different diet dogmas over my life, I have found what works best for me. I eat a whole food diet that includes carbs, protein, and fats that work with my metabolism. I eat a combination of animal and plant protein. I cook all my meals. They are healthy and delicious.
At Reno_DA wrote,
High carbon foods not good for diabetes. It is not food only. Blue Zone is pollution free and stress free. Stress is the most killing element in modern society.
At Martin Winlow wrote,
I have no idea if what you lot are saying here is true. Perhaps one day we will know for sure when our understanding of the science of how our bodies work is much more complete than it is currently. However, given how intelligent, insightful, and logical all of what you are saying sounds to me, I find it very hard to believe that your beliefs are not correct. So I wish you all the best with your work, and more power to your elbows.
Sabaka Neftetsa 8 wrote,
Anybody who has ever been to a Mediterranean country knows how late they eat. It's impossible to get a table before 9 p.m. Also, they only eat refined wheat. Impossible to find a whole wheat bread or pasta.
At Laura Pizzalia wrote,
My companion's 103-year-old mother is a freak of nature here in Italy outside of Rome. She is the meanest, crankiest, most pessimistic person I have met. I thought it was old age, but my companion says she has always been like that. She insults people constantly, it's hard to be around her. Also for breakfast, she has 4 slices of white toast. In Italy some bread is sold pre-toasted as fet by Scottate, with piles of jam, the cheapest jam on sale. I think she goes through half a kilo of jam a week. She does wash it all down with whole milk plain yogurt though. She used to cook and shop until a few years ago. Now she needs assistance, because even though her mind is as sharp as a tack, her body is degrading, and it doesn't respond like it used to. She has a small lunch, usually minestrone or pasta, finishing with fruit, and then for dinner a roll of white bread. A salad, just plain salad leaves, not a fancy salad, with fresh cheese, usually stracchino, and a piece of fruit. I wish she was like all of these blue zone centenarians that everyone meets that are joyful, social, and grateful. Who knows how much longer she could live if she was a thoughtful, gentle soul instead of a mean old bat. In my opinion, it seems like the yogurt and restricted eating are doing all of the heavy lifting, as she has no major medical conditions. Ciao from Italy. LPS, she still smokes 1 cigarette per day. She puffs on that one single cigarette a few times per day until it's finished.
Egoshe wrote,
Did he consider white rice as a whole grain? Zoe, please let us know whether white rice can be considered as a good source of whole grain. 908.
At Photosthefics wrote,
The ZOE audience and modern longevity seekers are being fed a dangerous mixture of biological truth and medical industrial compromise. While the Blue Zone's narrative provides a pleasant story of social habits and longevity, it is a distraction from the brutal reality of the Western heart. The lens of Dr. Dean Ornish and Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn provides the only scientifically proven path to fixing the problem that most of this audience already possesses: advanced cardiovascular decay. The historical decay. The 1899 Boer War, the unfit state of the modern human, began long before the current obesity epidemic. In 1899, during recruitment for the Boer War, the British military-industrial complex was stunned to find that up to 60% of recruits from industrialized cities were rejected as physically unfit. A subsequent 1904 parliamentary inquiry, the Interdepartmental Committee on Physical Deterioration, revealed that these men, typically born from 1870 onwards, were the first casualties of the Industrial Revolution's refined food experiment. The introduction of roller-milled, refined white flour and the abandonment of whole plant starches created a generation of stunted, frail men. We are not suffering from a new problem. We are suffering from the final stages of a 150-year dietary collapse. The hidden epidemic. The 1953 Korean War study. If anyone believes they are healthy because they feel fine, they must confront the 1953 Korean War study, Enos et al. JAMA. Autopsies of 300 U.S. soldiers, average age 22, revealed that 77.3% already had gross evidence of coronary artery disease. This was 1953. The rich man's diet had already turned young men into walking heart attack victims. The ZOE audience likely already has this disease. You do not need longevity tips. You need the laws of reversal. The clinical mandate, Morrison, Kempner, and the 10% threshold moderation is a death sentence for a diseased artery. To understand the requirement for reversal, one must look at the clinical data through the lens of those who actually cured the patients.
The Lester Morrison study, 1946. Dr. Morrison took 100 heart attack survivors. He placed 50 in a control group, standard American diet, and 50 on a low-fat diet, 20 to 25% of calories from fat. After 8 years, 28 survivors in the diet group, only 12 in the control. After 12 years, 0 survivors in the control group. Every single one was dead. In the diet group, 19 survivors, 38%, were still alive. Morrison's 20% fat diet was a massive improvement, but it was still a compromise. The Kempner sweet spot, 5% fat. In the 1940s, Dr. Walter Kempner at Duke University used a rice diet, rice, fruit, juice, and sugar to drive fat intake down to 5% of calories. He treated end-stage kidney disease and hypertensive retinopathy, so severe it caused bleeding in the eyes. Patients classified as legally blind regained their sight and were able to read newspapers again. This is the power of biological purity, not the power of adding some superfood to an existing poor diet, but the power of removing everything but white rice and sugar, which at the time were the only options, as no drugs were available at that time. We have moved on from those times, but we need to understand what worked in the 1940 ties, the Ornish/Esselstyn, standard 10% fat. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn and Dr. Dean Ornish perfected the sweet spot for reversal. By eliminating all animal products and all added oils, they proved that coronary artery disease could be stopped and reversed. They didn't do this by adding healthy fats. They did it by protecting the endothelial lining of the arteries from all dietary insults. The ZOE Blue Zone mixed message. A scientific error, the ZOE channels fluctuating messages, suggesting adding Greek yogurt or olive oil to balance a meal, are a catastrophic diversion. Greek yogurt. A 6 oz serving of 5% Greek yogurt contains approximately 7 grams of saturated fat, nearly 35% of the daily limit. It is liquid meat that injures the endothelium. The oil illusion. Olive oil is 100% fat. It is a processed, refined product that contributes to the clogging of arteries as surely as the refined flour of 1899. Social habits over biology. You can be the most social person in the world with a strong sense of purpose, but if your coronary arteries are filled with dietary muck, your purpose may be cut short by a heart attack or stroke. Biology mostly cares about the fuel in your tank. Your body is designed to process plants, not flesh. You have flat molars for grinding and spade-like incisors for biting starches. Unlike carnivores with weaponized stomach acid pH 1, to dissolve bone, your acid is weak, and your long digestive tract allows meat to putrefy and release toxins. Eliminate the meat and dairy, saturated fat delivery systems. Eliminate all oils, even olive oil. Eliminate processed flour. Return to the whole grain. Eat the starch, potatoes, corn, rice, and beans. The blue zones are a luxury for the healthy. Ornish and Esselstyn are the survival mandate for the rest of us. Reversal is not a mystery. It is a choice to follow the biological laws of the human body.
Cameron Duplessis, 1997, wrote,
Disappointed in the decline of real science being presented on this show. This guy has no scientific expertise, let alone expertise in nutrition. Blue zones are not real, they were debunked as insurance fraud. Like, is this show now just for people to market fad diets and individual wellness trends? Lol, that's sad.
Cameron Duplessis, 1997, wrote,
Blue zones have been debunked for a long time. Many, if not most, of the centenarians in the blue zone have turned out to be alive in the government records but were deceased in reality. Using extensive government data and surveys, Dr. Newman showed that most of the dietary and lifestyle claims behind the so-called blue zone regions of high longevity are not supported by any independent data.
At SJC 4738 wrote,
Dan's evident bias against GLP-1s shows a clear misunderstanding that they are sometimes appropriate. For example, when a decade of eating a whole food plant-based diet and a year of near-perfect Zoe scores haven't resulted in more than negligible weight loss, more is needed. Generalizations need caveats. And as someone who lives in South Florida, where most Latinos don't eat corn-based products, he should know better than to say that all Latinos understand that. That's true only for some, but far from all Latinos.
Abanikata wrote,
I'm curious what you think of baby, toddler, little kid nutrition. Currently, the recommendation is 3 meals and 2 snacks by 12 months. And of course, most Western toddlers snack on UPFs. I think that many snacks are excessive even at 12 months.
At Fifatrixabel 9279 wrote,
You say follow the diet of someone who has made it 100. My grandmother made it to 100. She didn't smoke nor drink alcohol. She grew her own vegetables, which means she ate potatoes, all the starchy veggies. She baked all her own cakes, biscuits. Made preserves from what she grew. She had Chook's fresh eggs. She hardly ever went out to eat, maybe once a year. It was just not something her generation did. She was a huge meat eater, lots of beef, pork, chicken, lots of dairy. She was a dairy farmer. She ate loads of butter, and I mean loads. And every Christmas, while preparing the Christmas ham, she would cut off the pork rind fat, and she would eat that. That was one thing I couldn't watch her eat. It would make me feel sick. She was not overweight. She was hardly on any medication, just for blood pressure, no dementia, but she had a fall and got hospitalized. Once that happened, she became bedridden and she died. But up until then, she still lived at home, tending to her garden and cooking her meals. Movement is also the key. She was active. Doctors were amazed that she wasn't on bowl full of pills every day. She didn't like pasta meals, just meat and veg, pretty simple food.
At Eliron wrote,
So I generally agree, but I don't think that it is so simple that an animal aggregates all poison it eats. Only certain ones, and it varies which and how much by species.
Fulville 1 wrote,
I'm not completely convinced, at all, about the veracity of the data coming out of the blue zones. Perhaps these blue zones are real, but Dr. Saul Justin Newman, Oxford Institute of Population Aging, and Goldsmiths College, University of London, published research last year highlighting flaws in record-keeping systems in areas famous for their supercentenarians. His work explored the inconsistencies in birth and death records, particularly in regions like Okinawa, Japan, and parts of Italy and Greece, where a disproportionate number of people have claimed to achieve extreme longevity, so-called blue zones. Newman found that many of these claims were likely due to errors or gaps in documentation, rather than true biological longevity. While longevity in these blue zones has been attributed to diet, social connections, and favorable genetics, Newman found that these subregions also corresponded to regions characterized by low incomes, low literacy rates, high crime rates, and short lifespans. Newman's findings suggested that the impressive number of supercentenarians in these blue zones is often inflated due to poor record-keeping practices, such as underreporting deaths or misattributing births. In some cases, these mistakes may even stem from pension fraud, where family members continue to report elderly relatives as alive to keep receiving benefits. By revealing these statistical anomalies, Newman's work calls into question the validity of many of these extreme longevity claims. 82% of people in Japan over the age of 100 turned out to be dead. And they didn't check them all. It is crazy. It is completely crazy.
Parents wrote,
Let's not conflate longevity with quality of life. When you say this is not the best place to get your protein, this is a stark bias with no scientific rigor. Pumpkin seed is not close to beef in bioavailability of protein. Also, blue zones are associated to higher vitamin D. So I would not focus so much on food as being the only contributor.
Sigrid Hiln wrote,
Whilst I cannot witness what Sardinians are eating, Italians consume sweet for breakfast, such as a sweet bread pastry, milky coffee, and orange juice, much like the French. In the afternoon, it's a pick-me-up espresso with sugar. Other meals are pasta, a fish and fruits in season. Bread is a panini with vegetable and or mortadella. Lots of cheeses, both fresh and fermented, such as ricotta and zucchini, flowed fried in olive oil. I would say it's the bulk of good but simple ingredients dotted with a gelato or a cream pudding or a simple version of tiramisu teamed up with fresh fruits. Eggs are always a huge part of the diet, as is fresh olive oil poured over the most simplest of cooked kale, broccoli, or simple salads. The love and the time to cook goes into every meal, as does the sense of community and relationships. The West is dead when it comes to social cohesion. Italy is keeping it alive in their family and towns.
George Wilson 7808 wrote,
Isotopic evidence of high reliance on plant food among later Stone Age hunter-gatherers at Taforalt. Morocco, conclusion. Our study highlights the importance of the Taforalt population's dietary reliance on plants before agriculture was ever developed. Malbtahij et al. 2020. For what did the hunters really eat? Science tells US.
Cronies 8864 wrote,
I agree with some of this, however, these plant-based people always vilify beef and then use the example of big agricultural.
We know they have nothing to offer. They never talk about the small grass-fed, grass-finished farms that care about their animals and people. He said when you go to a plant-based diet, it's clean. That's only if you grow it yourself in an organic environment, or at least buy organic. There's a lot of plant-based garbage out there. Grain should be organic and ancient, like einkorn for bread. Just because it's sourdough doesn't make it good.
Polariates wrote,
Is anybody looking at cortisol and stress levels in the areas of high longevity versus lower? What if it's less about food and more about rest and quality of life? If cortisol is high, it boosts the food intake.
Drunk Aviator 81 wrote,
The caveat with protein is if you're training on an athletic level with multiple strength sessions per week is that it's very hard to get sufficient protein from diet alone while eating a low meat diet. I would choose to add 100% organic whey scoop per day rather than additional meat. Although perhaps I could eat lots of Japanese tofu instead.
At user CV9WK9PR1K wrote.
It all depends on the climate, the daylight duration, humidity level. That's why vegetation is so vastly different. Photosynthesis. Human bodies digest foods differently depending on the time of the year, the warm, the sun. So it's hard to agree or disagree on those points because generalizations are tricky.
A Jack9366 wrote.
At the risk of being grumpy, I didn't find that he said anything significant/different from understanding I already have. Yeah, there's also a good reason for folk in Sardinia to take 2 hour at lunch and folk in Scotland not. Climate, and where you are on the planet.